What happens when the man she thought she had suddenly stops caring? What happens when the constant texts go silent? When the man who used to chase her shadow becomes a ghost? She never expected you to vanish. She never thought you'd wake up. But the truth is, the day you stop caring is the day she breaks, because you were never broken. You were addicted. Let's get one thing clear. Heartbreak doesn't come from love. It comes from withdrawal, obsession, expectation. You weren't missing her. You were missing the version of yourself that felt needed, seen, important. And she knew that. She knew exactly what she was doing when she ignored your messages, posted stories designed to hurt, flirted with the idea of you while entertaining someone else. It wasn't personal. It was power. You think she left because you weren't good enough. Nope. She left because she could, because you showed her every crack, every weakness, every desperate plea for her attention. You made her the center of your emotional universe, and then wondered why she stopped orbiting around you. But here's the shift. The Stoic doesn't beg. The Stoic observes, accepts, controls. When you stop reacting, she stops knowing where she stands. Women don't fall for men who try harder. They fall for men who pull back and become harder to reach. When you detach emotionally, when you become untouchable, she feels it like a slap. The silence is deafening. The absence is haunting. The indifference, that's the wound she didn't see coming. Because here's the thing, she didn't want you to move on. She wanted you stuck. She wanted you orbiting her, forever emotional, forever invested, because that's where her ego lived. But the moment you walk away with nothing left to say, that's the moment her reality cracks. You were the drug. You were the attention. You were the emotional mirror that made her feel valuable. And when you disappear, she starts questioning herself. That's the twist. That's the flip. That's Stoic power. So now, ask yourself, are you done being the man who waits, the man who chases, the man who breaks every time she blinks the wrong way? Or are you ready to disappear from her radar and reappear in your own? If you're tired of being the one who cares more, the one who breaks, the one who waits, hit that like button. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below, I reclaim my silence. Number 1. The addiction to emotion. You think you miss her, but you don't. You miss the chaos, the chemical high, the rush of being wanted, then rejected, then wanted again. You miss the texts at midnight, the breadcrumb attention, the roller coaster that kept your heart racing and your mind in survival mode. That wasn't love. That was emotional addiction. And every time you ran back to her, hoping this time it would feel safe, you were just feeding the cycle again. You weren't in a relationship. You were in withdrawal and relapse on repeat. She didn't need to do much. Just a smile, a delay in her reply, a subtle post with a guy you don't know, and it lit your brain up like a slot machine. Dopamine, cortisol, hope, anxiety, repeat. That biochemical cocktail created a fantasy, one where you thought the intensity was love. But it wasn't. Real love is peace. This question mark, this was dependency masked as romance. And the worst part? You told yourself she was the only one who could make you feel this way. That's the trap. You believed she was the source of your worth, your joy, your emotional clarity. But she wasn't. You just handed her the remote to your nervous system, and now she could change the channel whenever she felt like it. The Stoics had a word for this: enslavement. When your emotions own you, you are not free. When another person's actions dictate your self-worth, you are not a man, you are a prisoner. And what do Stoics do with prisons? They escape. They break the illusion. They stop chasing highs and start mastering lows. They observe emotion, but they don't obey it. Once you see it, once you feel the space between what happens and how you respond, you're free. You realize you're not missing her. You're missing a version of you that didn't know how to sit in stillness. But that version of you is dead now. And in his place, a man who doesn't need anyone to feel whole. She's going to notice it. She'll sense the silence, the calm, the absence of emotional chaos. And she'll start to wonder, where did he go? Why doesn't he react anymore? Why doesn't he chase the fix? That's when the power flips. Because the addiction ends, not when she's gone, but when you no longer care if she comes back. Number 2. The illusion of her power. She never had power. You gave it to her. Every time you double texted, every time you apologized for things you didn't do, every time you waited around hoping she'd come back. That wasn't love. That was submission. That was emotional surrender dressed up as devotion. You weren't choosing her. You were obeying her. And she felt it. Trust me, she felt it. Women aren't attracted to control. They're attracted to strength. The second she sensed that her attention dictated your emotions, she lost respect. Not because she's cruel, because biologically, psychologically, women are wired to test for stability. And every time you folded, flinched, or begged, you confirmed what she suspected. You weren't in control of yourself. So she pulled away, not because she wanted better, but because you didn't know your value. And here's where it flips. The illusion of her power only exists if you believe she's the prize. But the moment you see her as human, not some divine being sent to validate you, the spell breaks. She gets insecure, confused, because the attention she was used to, the certainty, the emotional buffet, is gone, and your absence is louder than anything you could ever say. You thought if you cared more, gave more, chased harder, you'd win her heart. Nope, that's not how it works. The more you gave without boundaries, the more disposable you became. But now you go cold. Not out of hate, out of clarity. You reclaim your time. You invest in your growth. You stop playing games and start setting standards. And guess what? She starts reaching. Because the one thing more attractive than love is self-respect. That's the paradox. The man who no longer needs her validation becomes the only one she wants validation from. Number 3. Silence is violence to the ego. You want to know what really breaks her? Not yelling, not venting, not trying to prove your worth. It's silence. Pure, unshakable silence. Because the female ego feeds off energy, your emotions, your reactions, your attention. The more noise you make, the more she knows she still owns a piece of you. But the moment you go quiet, that's when she panics. That's when the game flips. You don't have to block her. You don't have to announce your departure. You just stop talking. You stop explaining. You stop feeding her ego with your pain. Because when you stop reacting, you stop being predictable. And when you become unpredictable, you become powerful. Nothing gets under someone's skin more than the person they expected to crumble, going completely calm. She might post to get your attention. She might test you with breadcrumbs, but you don't bite. Stoics don't chase ghosts. They sit with the discomfort, they let it burn, and they rebuild from silence. That's silence, that's discipline, that's control. And to her, it's terrifying, because silence doesn't tell her whether you're hurting or healing, and that mystery becomes her obsession. Understand this. Your silence forces her to face herself. All the doubts, the guilt, the fear of losing something real, those voices get louder when yours disappears. And the longer you stay quiet, the more she spirals. Because for the first time, she's alone in the chaos she created. You're not punishing her. You're preserving yourself. You're reclaiming your dignity. And when she finally breaks the silence with a "hey" or a "how have you been," you won't even feel the pull, because you'll know the version of you who used to beg for that message is gone. Number 4, control is the new currency. You want real power? Stop trying to control her. Control yourself. Control your urges, your impulses, your reactions. Because in a world addicted to validation, the man who stays grounded becomes magnetic. She expects you to lash out, to post something emotional, to try and win her back with desperate energy. But when you stay cool, collected, focused, that shakes her, because it means she doesn't have a grip on your mind anymore. Emotional control is the highest form of dominance, not just over her, but over your life. When you master your reactions, you become unpredictable. And nothing is more attractive or more dangerous than a man no one can read. A man who feels everything but shows nothing. She can try to bait you. She can try to push your buttons. But when nothing gets to you, she's no longer playing a game. She's just throwing stones at a wall that doesn't move. Control isn't about being emotionless, it's about being disciplined. It's knowing how you feel and choosing not to let it run your life. She left? That's fine. She's talking to someone else. Let her. You don't chase. You don't flinch. You double down on your mission. You get sharper, colder, stronger. You become a man whose peace cannot be negotiated. And the irony? That's what pulls her back. Not because you want her to return, but because you've become something she didn't expect. Untouchable. She'll start questioning her choices, wondering if you ever cared, wondering how the same man who used to pour everything into her could walk away without a trace. The truth is, you didn't lose her. You lost control of you. Now you take it back. Number 5. The scar is the sword. Every man remembers the moment it broke, the message that ended it, the night she stopped responding, the slow fade, the betrayal, the silence. That pain, that scar you still feel, that's not your weakness. That's your weapon. You don't heal by pretending it didn't hurt. You heal by turning the pain into precision. That scar on your heart, that's the cut that woke you up. That's the reminder of what happens when you love without a spine. She didn't destroy you. She exposed you. She showed you the parts of yourself that were still fragile, still dependent, still lost. And now? Now you take that pain and forge something with it. You get colder, sharper, stronger. Stoics don't cry over the fire. They step into it and come out steel. Every morning you wake up and feel that burn in your chest. That's your training ground. That's your advantage. Because while she's busy seeking the next emotional thrill, you're building discipline. While she's chasing attention, you're chasing growth. You don't run from the scar. You study it. You remember how it happened, not to stay bitter, but to stay focused, to never let another human being hold that kind of power over you again. You don't wait for her to regret it. You make sure that by the time she looks back, you're unrecognizable. You're no longer the man she walked away from. You're the man who used her rejection as rocket fuel. Pain will either harden your heart or sharpen your edge. You choose. The scar isn't a reminder of what broke you. It's proof that you survived and came back more dangerous. Number 6. Let her wonder. Stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to be understood. Stop giving her closure. Let her wonder. Let her sit with the questions. Let her replay the last conversation in her mind 1,000 times, trying to figure out where you went, why you stopped caring, how you became someone she can no longer read. Because mystery is power, certainty is comfort, and the moment she knows exactly how you feel, she stops thinking about you. That's what broke you in the first place. You were too transparent, too available, too ready to explain your emotions in detail. You gave her the blueprint to your soul while she was still deciding whether you were worth her time. That's not strength, that's exposure. And the truth is, she respected the parts of you that were quiet, the things you didn't say, the things she had to guess about, that uncertainty. That's what made her curious. And curiosity is the seed of attraction. Now it's time to flip the script. You're no longer a page in her story. You're a mystery she can't solve. You don't chase, you don't clarify, you don't post cryptic quotes for attention. You move in silence. You level up in silence. You let her feel the absence. And the more she wonders, the more she remembers. The more she questions, the more power you gain. She wanted closure. Let her earn it. Let her feel what it's like to be left unread. Let her imagine all the versions of you that exist now, the ones she'll never get to know. Because the more unknown you become, the more unforgettable you are. And by the time she figures out what she lost, it'll be too late. Number 7. Rejection is redirection. She didn't ruin your life, she rerouted it. The day she left, the day she ghosted you, cheated, lied, faded out, whatever the story is, it felt like death, like the world cracked open. But that wasn't destruction. That was a pivot. That was the universe ripping away what you thought you needed to give you a shot at becoming who you were meant to be. Rejection isn't personal. It's directional. It's the moment life says, not here, not her, not this way. You thought she was the one. Nope, she was the lesson. She was the mirror you needed to face your own weakness, the flaw in your foundation. She cracked it, and now you rebuild stronger. Stoics don't romanticize pain. They use it. They see loss as refinement. If she walked, it means she was never strong enough to stay. And if she stayed without respect, that would have been worse. She left to make room for clarity. Think about who you were when you met her, how much of your identity revolved around her opinion, her approval, her presence. That man is gone. And now? Now you move not from ego, not from revenge, but from rebirth. You don't need closure. You don't need validation. You just need momentum. And that starts with letting rejection redirect your focus to what actually matters, you. She thought she was ending something, but she was starting something dangerous, something untouchable, because you're no longer walking around with your heart in your hands. You've put it back in your chest where it belongs. Number 8, the mirror effect. Here's the twist she never saw coming. When you go still, she goes wild. When you stop chasing, she starts spiraling. Because women don't fear being left behind. They fear facing their reflection. And that's exactly what you become when you detach. A mirror. No reaction, no validation, just stillness. And in that stillness, she sees herself, clearly, maybe for the first time. See, as long as you were emotional, reactive, desperate, she could tell herself a story. That you were weak, that you couldn't live without her, that she was always in control. But when you stop feeding her ego, when you show no response to the games, when you cut the emotional lifeline, you reflect her behavior back to her. The lies, the betrayal, the silence, the indecision. Now she's left to sit with that. And it's deafening. You don't need to get loud. You don't need revenge. You become the consequence. The stoic man becomes the mirror that forces her to confront the choices she made. And when she looks at you and sees no pain, no chase, no obsession, just peace, that peace tortures her. Because if you're at peace, that means she was never your source of happiness. And that's what breaks her. She'll wonder why you're not fighting. She'll wonder who you've become. But the answer is simple. You became what she could never control. You no longer reflect her chaos. You reflect your evolution. And once you show her that version of you, the calm, focused, untouchable version, she'll realize you're no longer someone she can play with. You're someone she misses. Number 9, attraction through absence. Here's the truth no one wants to admit. Your presence was never the problem. Your availability was. You were too there, too present, too ready. Every time she called, you answered. Every time she drifted, you followed. Every time she gave a little, you gave everything. And in doing so, you made yourself common, predictable, easy to replace. Attraction doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in space, in uncertainty, in absence. You think the way to win her back is to show her how much you care. Nope. That's what got you here in the first place. Constant validation, constant reassurance, constant presence. But presence becomes noise when it's expected. It loses its weight. What shakes a woman isn't attention, it's silence. What draws her back isn't proof of love. It's the question of whether that love still exists. When you disappear, not to manipulate but to evolve, you create gravity. Your absence forces her to face the reality she was avoiding, that maybe, just maybe, she lost something real. Not because you said it, not because you argued for it, but because your absence speaks louder than your words ever could. When you vanish from her daily world, she starts remembering, not just what you were, but what you could have been. And that what if will haunt her. You don't disappear to hurt her. You disappear to find you. You pull back to rebuild, to refocus, to reclaim your energy. And the irony? That absence makes you more powerful than you ever were when you were standing right in front of her. Number 10, the return of the king. You don't come back for her. You don't come back to prove anything. You return because you rebuilt, stronger, sharper, unbothered. The version of you that begged, chased, cried, waited. He died the moment you chose to let go. And in his place, a king. Not because you sit on a throne, but because you no longer kneel at hers. You rise not to flex, not to show off, but because silence gave you space to evolve. Pain gave you permission to grow. You didn't waste your heartbreak, you used it. While she searched for distractions, you built discipline. While she moved on to someone else, you moved on to your purpose. And now, you don't just look different, you feel different. Your energy has changed. Your presence now demands respect without saying a word. And when she sees you again, whether in person, online, or just through whispers, she'll feel that shift. She'll see the glow, the stillness in your eyes, the detachment in your smile, and it'll hit her. You're no longer hers to hurt. You're no longer reachable. She'll realize you didn't just heal, you leveled up. You became the man she thought she had, but never truly deserved. You don't need her to see it. You don't need her apology, because kings don't go backward. They don't chase closure. They don't settle for what broke them. They build empires from the ruins. This isn't about revenge. This is about resurrection. This is about becoming the kind of man who never has to explain himself again, because the results speak louder than any conversation ever could. You made it. If you're still watching, that means something in you has already shifted. You're not here for pity. You're not here for revenge. You're here for rebirth. You've seen what happens when you care too much, give too easily, and lose yourself in the chase. But now you know, detachment is power. Not because you're numb, but because you've grown. You've learned that silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. That absence isn't giving up, it's leveling up. Let her wonder. Let her miss you. Let her scroll through old memories trying to find traces of the man who used to need her. But that man is gone, and in his place is someone untouchable. You don't rise to get her back. You rise to never need her again. This is Stoic blessing, and if no one's told you this yet, your pain was the portal. Your silence is the sword. Your future, that's the kingdom you're about to build. So if you're ready to close this chapter for good, if you're ready to walk with your head high and your heart guarded, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop one last comment below. I don't chase, I build. Your comeback doesn't need witnesses, but the world will feel it anyway. Stay silent, stay strong, stay dangerous.